All right, time now for just south of Buffalo. We want to welcome in a friend of the program here on Erie News now at 7, that being Dr. Ken Louie from Penn State Behrend. So, sir, a long list of reciprocal tariffs that President Donald Trump laid out yesterday, a 10% baseline for all countries that we do business with. Sir, what are your initial reactions on it?
Well, we already had expected this to come, so it wasn't like a big surprise. Although, according to some analysts, it was probably a little bit more substantial. Tariff rates that are being proposed are a little bit higher than what many people had expected. But overall, it's pretty much what we had been anticipating.
Does a 10% baseline for all countries surprise you at all?
It is a little surprising because we import some things from countries that are able to produce them where we really cannot produce those goods. So it may have been perhaps better to focus on tariffs where it comes to competing with U.S. Versions of those products. But if we can't produce those goods on our own and we have to import them, then it's kind of like hurting domestic consumers, and we have no recourse because we don't produce them domestically.
Do you think that it will, in the end up being effective for us to really hit these countries that the president calls worst offenders, hit them hard with tariffs?
Well, that's a complicated question because one metric that the president likes to use is the trade deficit. So he uses that as a nice, simple way to gauge, in his opinion, how unfairly the relationship might be with a particular country. And so countries with high trade deficits, very big trade deficits with the US, are targeted to a greater extent. But it's more complicated because those deficits are based on many, many different economic factors. So it isn't always necessarily a bad thing that we have deficits. Once again, sometimes it's just because we don't produce many of those things on our own, so we have to import them. So you have to look at a bigger picture with more nuance.
Doctor, taking a look at the visuals and the political side of this, to have this chart behind him as he's announcing these tariffs, is it effective that the American people can see where you see China is the tariffs is 67% compared to us just 34%? Is that effective for the American people to see these numbers sort of in action?
Oh, definitely. I think it presents a very, very concrete picture as to what the president is proposing. So it's a great promotional marketing kind of effort on the part of the president and his staff. By the same token, if if we are to judge by the news that has been coming out after the announcement, we do see that Americans actually are pretty knowledgeable about the potential impact of these tariffs. So beyond just the sort of the fancy promotional efforts, Americans do actually understand what the likely impacts are going to be. And so that's the other side of it.
Doctor, does it surprise you at all that the president sort of backed off a little bit when it comes to Canada and Mexico, citing the USMCA, a deal that he negotiated in his first term?
Right. That didn't really surprise me as much because he actually has been touting the USMCA, even when he first renegotiated it back in his first term, as one of the good deals that he was able to strike with Canada and Mexico. So it's not surprising to me that he would gradually relax some of those restrictions against our closest trade partners here in North America.
Tell you what, sir, you said there that a lot of economists agree and analysts, but the best one that I've ever seen is staring me in the face right now. I'll tell you that, sir. So thank you very much, Doctor. We appreciate your time as always.
Thank you, Phil. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.